I've got a very old PC, and it tends to cut off. It's connected to the Wi-Fi, and then you just lose the signal. So it's not just this. It happens
Yeah.
to me all the time.
I think it's probably not advisable using 1993 PCs in 2025. Might be wrong, don't know. Hi, Mark. How are you doing?
Mate. Finally.
How's it going? What's happening? How's life been treating you?
Yeah, okay. It's all right, really. Yeah, I'm just waiting for a new release to come out. We put out an album, a vinyl album. You probably know, actually, because it was reviewed. We had a review in the Wire magazine.
Yes.
The very Wire magazine of the year, not last year before, right at the end. And Edwin reviewed your album and our album together.
That's right, yeah. Yeah. Good review as well.
I guess we're both old punks. He put like the old punks section.
Together in the old punk section. Yeah, it tends to happen.
That's right. But we've got that was vinyl only, so we've got the CD version of that album that's coming out later on this month. Well, it's a CD version of that album. Yeah, experimental stuff, because I don't tend to play rock music anymore. It's more experimental, synthesizers, noise, improv, and all that.
Singing? Any singing?
No singing. It's entirely instrumental.
You were into Frank Zappa, weren't you? Is that right?
Yeah. Well, since I was a kid, I guess he was one of my biggest influences, Frank Zappa.
Same. I really like Zappa, and I usually like records that have got singing on them. That's kind of what gets me interested in the first place. But with Zappa, I sort of went off that rule because of his mad stuff that just goes all over the place, and his funny little short songs.
That's right. The good thing about Frank Zappa, he never really restricted himself to one type of music, did he? You had he did some great rock songs, but he did some brilliant pop, he doo-wop even, but also experimental, orchestral. So, if you've got plenty of Frank Zappa stuff, you've got all sorts of different stuff. And I've always had the idea about music. I think it's like back in the punk day, and that although obviously I was fully committed to the punk thing like yourself, I soon got bored with it because I soon got bored with the free called thrash, and I found it very restricting. So you're quite early on, even in 1979, alternative TV, we started doing different stuff. And I guess the sort of stuff that was influenced by Frank Zappa, Cale, all that type of stuff.
You did a version of Why Don't You Do Me Right, didn't you?
Yeah, on our first album, yeah, on the Images Cracked, we did that. I
thought for a Frank Zappa song, you would think that Frank Zappa wouldn't settle into punk rock that well, but that's a great punk rock song, isn't it?
Absolutely, it really works. The other song of his that we used to do live is Plastic People, which is based upon it's Louie, it's the Louie riff, but with sort of better lyrics, So we used to do that live quite a lot.
Yeah, he was great, Frank Zappa, wasn't he? He died quite young. Yeah. I thought he was old then because I was much younger, but he was quite young actually, wasn't it?
He was in his 50s in 93. You know what killed him? The old smoking.
Shut up.
He was wasn't he? He was like a 40, 50 a day man, and that's what killed him.
I thought it was colon cancer.
No, I thought it was throat cancer.
No, I think people watching this should quickly fact check this. I reckon it's colon cancer. It had nothing to do with old smoking. I don't think Frank Zappa really claimed it that much on anything. Anyway, he was pretty straight edge, wasn't he? I believe
he liked to drink, I think, but he was anti-drugs. Yeah, he used to find when they were on tour, the band, the various versions of the Mothers of Invention. If he caught them taking drugs, he would fine them. Because he didn't like any drug taking. He liked to drink, obviously, not smoke, but he didn't like any drug taking.
Well, that's what nearly all of his audience took lots of drugs. I wonder if he minded about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I think the last time I saw you was probably back then in one of the Roxy or one of the places that we all hung out. Oh no, it
No,
wasn't. We did that gig, didn't we,
I,
with Sham 69?
it was on a boat. It was on a boat on the River Thames.
That's it.
That was
Yeah,
it. It was the most ridiculous thing. It was, what would it be like mid-90s, wouldn't it? 95 or something, 96.
definitely mid
And
90s.
Sh- the Sham 69 had a new album out, didn't they? And they had this mad idea that they would do an album launch, but they didn't play. Sham 69 didn't actually play, did they? So they did this album launch, but instead of playing, they just invited Alternative
Yeah,
TV and Eater to play the party, didn't they?
that was very weird. And that the record deal that they had for that album, right, I found out, was with our old with Eater's old record company boss, Caruso, and he stitched
Oh
them
yeah,
up.
yeah,
He stitched
yeah.
them up the same way that he stitched us up, and Jimmy Percy was very mad about that. Still is. I bumped into him on a motorway service station just not that long ago, a few years ago, and the first thing he said was, "Fucking Caruso." So it's my fault.
I haven't seen Jimmy for ages. I haven't seen him for ages. It's yeah, a long time ago.
They're playing at Rebellion, I think, this year.
Yeah, well, it's like a lot of these old bands. I know you yourself, you're not into all that, but it's like a lot of these. They just won't stop, will they? And they're not doing anything new, and it's just boring. I mean, good luck to them if that's what they want to do, if that's where they want to spend their time. But it's not sort of thing I'm into. You know, just playing the same old songs. It's just boring, isn't it?
I was talking about that with John Mackay, the original Banshees guitarist, just yesterday,
Oh, right. Yeah.
and he was saying we sort of agreed that, you know, to just, it's fun for like a one-off thing, but to be constantly, but it's not so much. I like playing the Eater songs, and with the band, I've got a young band that I play Eater sets with. But if that was my main thing, I'd go crazy.
I remember when we said about the 90s with Jimmy and that. I thought that was quite interesting. That was the first time we actually played. You know, Darren Russell. He did a Holidays in the Sun. It was at Bath. And I thought that was quite interesting because it was 20 years, wasn't it? It was 95, 96. It was the 20th anniversary, and that seemed an okay thing to do, like a one-off, or a couple, whatever. And I think we went to Blackpool for the first one. We played the 96 one. You were there, weren't you? In Blackpool.
I didn't know about the Bath one though. That seems curious to link.
Yeah, well, that was the Bath was Holidays in the Sun. That was the year before. That was 95. But what I'm saying is, I felt that was okay as like a one-off. I mean, we did a couple of things that year. Like we did a thing at the 100 Club as well with the Buzzcocks and that. You know, as a sort of an anniversary of the 100 Club Punk Festival. But to still do that again, because that is now, when you think about it, that's 30 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, 90. That's 30 years to keep on doing this stuff. I mean, basically, let's face it, it's turned into a cabaret, isn't it, Andy? It's just cabaret. That's all it is.
It's a pantomime. But I mean, you're right. If it was a one-off, if they were still doing one-offs, occasionally there'd be the UK Subs doing a gig, or occasionally they'd be doing a gig. Then that would be more of a novelty and worth, I'll check that out. But when it's turned into that every year, knees up at Blackpool, and there's so much wrong with that. The only people that get paid properly are the main Cock Sparrow acts and the
real
subs, and it's which is fair enough. Of course, headliners get paid more, but seeing as it's probably 80% of it is the bands that don't get paid anything. They're lucky to get expenses, especially some of the new bands.
No, absolutely.
And,
I must admit, I can never understand. I've never understood Cock Sparrow.
I've never understood.
It's just dull. It's just the dullest thing ever. I mean, Cockney Rejects, I quite like their early stuff, but Cock Sparrow is just boring.
You remember? I'm glad you say that, because you remember at the time, right? Because this is what a lot of people don't realise. Because not everybody was there at the time. Bands like Cock Sparrow and Screwdriver were thought of as, stupid copycat fucking idiots that have just lumped onto the punk bandwagon. And now to be fated as the punk rock heroes just seems a bit kind of perverse to me.
Well, I think what it is, isn't it? I think that the idea of what is good in punk is seen through the prism of like you know, US hardcore, the European scene. So if you look at it through that sort of Green Day prism, you look at it from that angle, then a band like Cocksparrow is going to be well up there because they were quite influential, weren't they, later on in the 80s with that sort of scene. But I mean, to me, what was best about punk is those early couple of years, probably only 2 years, you know, from early 76 through to the end of 77. I mean, to me, by like end of 77, 70, it was gone. It was dead. It was just boring, you know. So that's what I see as what's interesting about punk. All the stuff that came later, to me, it's just like thuggish music. It was like sort of third-rate Slade type thing, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, even that comparison with Green Day and Cocksparrow, I think is wrong, because I know what you're saying, but I wouldn't have minded if there was a band like Green Day, you know, I wouldn't have minded them. And if they had just sprung up because of punk and you didn't know they were actually a horrible old rock band from the pubs, you know, who just saw there's this new thing going on. And so I'll give more respect to Green Day than I would to those other sort of bands. But, you know, fucking hell, people enjoy that, don't they? I don't mind people enjoying it. It's just that I don't like that I feel as though I'm supposed to be connected to it, because I stopped enjoying that.
No.
6 months after it started.
I get involved because I know Darren quite well. We did gigs in like the Midlands for him, you know, one-off gigs in the 90s and that. So, and he always asked ATV to play the festival every year, and also to do the literary stage. You know, they do the literary stage, especially when I had the book out, I had the Sniffing Glue book out again last year. But he's sort of given up now. I noticed last year he didn't, because I always say no. I think the last time we played, it was like 2016 or something as a one-off. But I always sort of say, "Oh, thanks for asking, but we don't want to do it." And he's just given up on me now, I think, because I think he knows my feelings. You know, he knows my feelings that it's just boring. You know, it's just sort of dull. As we said, it reminds me. I was saying to someone the other day. Remember when you were a kid? I don't know if you ever got taken to holiday camps when you were a kid. And you go to a holiday camp, like Pontins, and there'd be someone like Billy J. Kramer playing the holiday camp. Remember that? Or the Foremost. And that's, to me, that's what it's turned into. It's like these old men just playing their old hits, you know.
It's exactly. And you know, at the time of punk, there was rock and roll reunion gigs all going on at Wembley and places like that. And I would think, oh, it's fucking boring, it's that. And there was, do you remember that spoof in Sounds or Melody Maker that pretended there was a punk rock festival, as if there would ever be a punk rock festival, you know, outside. And they were kind of saying Sham 69 are headlining on this stage and that stage. And it's all actually, that joke has kind of backfired.
It's come true, yeah. It's come true, yeah. Do you still know a lot of these people now? I mean, I'm still mates with, like, you know, the Captain. I'm still mates with Noel from Menace, Gene. I'm still mates with all these people. I mean, if that's what they want to do, fine. But are you still connected to a lot of these bands? You talk to any of them?
Not really. No, not really. Apart from Durwood from Generation X, who I didn't. Funny enough, I didn't even know at the time. And we've started working together on some stuff. But apart from that, which is a kind of an unusual connection because he lives in California, and you know, so we do everything online. I mean, I'll bump into these people at the gigs I have done, and you know, a lot of them I didn't really know anyway, and so you know, there's not much to say. I bumped into Slaughter and the Dogs had more of a connection to Eater than any of the other bands because they played at our school, and they came to Finchley one day and we showed them the delights of Finchley.
Oh, what they played? I remember the Damn gig you put on, but the Slaughter and the Dogs played the school day as well.
They came all the way down from Manchester for that, and and I thought that bonding that we had there was, you know, was something that I would like to see them later. So when I did eventually meet Slaughter at the 1996 Holidays in the Sun thing, I thought, oh great, see Mick and Wayne again. And I remember seeing them walking towards me as me and Brian were walking along the corridor, and I thought, oh great, going to say hello to Mick and Wayne. And then as I walk by, Mick just goes, all right, Andy, and carries on walking as though it was just like a story or something. I've got so much for nostalgic, you know, talking about the past. And so no, I don't really, you know, I'm sort of Facebook friends with a few of the people, but that book that you said that you didn't particularly want you weren't all that happy about that. I thought, well, in that case, I'll have a look at what you said in there. One of the things you said, which I think is really interesting, is that you said that the posh party people kind of ruined it, you know, rather than, and it was a more working class. It ruined the working class element. But I don't know if that's correct. That's not verbatim. But I always thought that those posh cultural sort of people like Caroline Coon and John Ingham and those, I always thought they made it a bit more special than because otherwise it would have
I can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember saying that in the book, but I don't know what I was trying to get, because I'd agree with you. I think why it was interesting, that whole early punk scene, because I think why it was interesting, like you said, is it was that coming together. So there was the working class kids like myself, you know what I mean, like a few, and there was also the art school kids. There was this sort of like the, you know, the, say we call them posh, but the more, you know, the professionals like your writers and all that. I think it was the coming together of all that. That's what made it, like you said, it's what made it interesting. If it had just been working, imagine if it was working, just be like Sham 69 and Cock Sparrow, wouldn't it have been shit? But it was that coming together of the different classes. I mean, once you were down the Roxy Club, it didn't matter where you came from, did you? All part of it. So I'm not sure what I said. I can't remember saying that in the book.
Maybe it was misconstrued a bit by me, by making. But
I did say a lot of stupid things in that book, I must admit.
I hate it when your words get committed to something paper. But I remember talking about the posher people like Caroline Coon and John Ingham. I met all of them first before I met you, and I remember when you wanted to do an interview with Eta, and we met at our publishers in somewhere up in London, and that was the first proper sit-down interview we'd had. It was only a little piece you wrote, but it was a proper kind of met you and I thought that's weird. How come he hasn't got a posh voice as well?
I thought didn't you get interviewed? Was it me and Steve Micallef? Remember Steve Mick?
Yeah.
I thought we interviewed you it was in a pub. I thought it was in a pub off of Regent Street, around the back there somewhere. Maybe remember that.
Maybe we went onto the pub. I'm pretty sure we met at the Campbell and Connolly's offices. But anyway, whatever. But yeah, you know, I thought, well, your accent, you're like us. You sound like one of us. And I like that kind of, you never knew what someone's background was going to be like. And it was
no.
I took offense to you saying that Eta are a right bunch of yobs or something like that. I thought, I don't remember doing anything that yobbish.
At the time, it might have been something to do. Remember, you used to do the stage show with the pig's head, didn't it? Was that part of that? Maybe it was a response to that sort of performance.
To be honest, we probably did come across like a little bunch of fucking oiks. So, what did you make of us? What did you make of us? Did you think these are stupid kids, don't know what they're doing?
Not really. I think I was open-minded enough. But then I feel a bit guilty here, because I wonder if you're going to bring this up. I feel a bit guilty because I did remember that book I did with Erica Eckenberg, and I was really rude about Eta in that. Do you remember that?
No, but I remember a bad review you gave to one of our singles. But you know.
Yeah, I think I was a bit. That's right, and I had something about the label. I don't know if I think I'd had an argument with you know, what's his name, Goodman. You know, I think I'd had an argument with him, Dave. Yeah, I mean, he was a great bloke, and later on it was fun. But I think I'd had some sort of falling out. So when you sing, I said something like, "Oh, they're not even a proper label," or something stupid. You know, it was some offhand remark. You know,
I would agree. I would agree with that. They were not a proper label. They were fucking shit. But no, Dave.
Yeah, but they got you. They got your album out though, didn't they? They got your album out, okay.
If we'd have waited just a 6 months, 3 months, or month even, we would have signed to a proper label. And so the fact that they got our label, that doesn't really, they took all the money for it as well, never ever got royalties ever. And so
really,
it was, didn't
it get, because it ended up, didn't it end up coming out on, where did it get re-released? When it was finally on CD, did it come out through Sanctuary or something like that?
The rights have only just very recently come back to me. So before then, it was just released, stuff was released on compilations and re-releases, and for 30 years, for 40 years afterwards. So he really screwed us over. And because of, and he rubbed a lot of people up the wrong way. Caruso, the boss, Dave was like the friendly face, and then
Caruso, that's right, Caruso, yeah.
I remember John Peel falling out with him once and calling him he called him a smooth talking motherfucker.
Okay. See, that was the other interesting thing about those early days, wasn't it, Andy? Is that, like you said, the different people, the writers and the photographers and like kids like us and that. But that was interesting, wasn't it? That you'd be down the Roxy or wherever, or the Vortex, and you'd have someone from CBS standing next to you, or EMI. I've been trying to explain people now, because it was so long ago, people don't realise how small the record industry was. Remember, in that small part of Oxford Street, you could go to EMI, couldn't you? Polydor, CBS, they were all up in 10. We knew all the people. We knew Chris Parry, didn't we? We bumped into them down the clubs and that. So I'm trying to put across the bit with is how sort of insidious it all was, in a really nice way, wasn't it? You know what I mean? That you could talk to these people,
Well, it was a proper scene in that way, in that we all created it, and then people wanted to be part of it, and it was. I imagine. I don't know, but I imagine getting record labels to come to your gigs was just as a hard thing as ever to do. But at that time, it was fucking easy, because they were all wanting part of the pie, and so it was it was a ready-made kind of melting pot. And but there was there was a few unpleasant incidents that I can remember. Did you know, what did you think of these characters? Right, I've got a few people that I wanted to get your opinion on. Wobble, for a start. What did you make of Wobble?
I thought he was a thug. I didn't know him later on, because I quite like some of Peel's music. But no, he was just one of those. Lydon, John, was surrounded by these just idiots, I thought, and he was just one of them. That's what I thought.
There was John Rambo, John Lydon, and
I didn't like him. I didn't like those, but I think John, it was basically, if you spoke to John, as you know, Lydon, he's a really nice guy. He's intelligent if you get him one-to-one. But back in those days, remember, he was surrounded by these sort of thugs, wasn't he? These idiots that would do his bidding and all that. And it was just boring, That's what I thought of that lot,
Yeah. There's another one, John Gray, I think his name was. And
that's right. It was all the Johns, wasn't it? There was all the Johns. It was Rambo, John Gray, Wobble. Yeah, it was tedious. I thought all that was so tedious, all that. I hated it, I mean, the times I spent with John Lydon on his own, one-to-one, was fine. Brilliant. Talk about music, whatever, this, that, and other.
I think the difference between John Lydon and the rest of the Johns was that John Lydon was, intelligent and interesting, and wasn't just a thug. You know what I mean?
And creative. He was creative, wasn't he?
And on his own, he was very different to when he's pissed up with his mates. I got attacked by them, a nasty incident at Nora's house back in 1977. But
I think I read about that. You put something on the Facebook about it, didn't you?
Yeah. And they ended up pissing in fairy liquid bottles in the kitchen and coming upstairs where I was hiding underneath the bed and like soaking me with urine and throwing things, but they were pretty heavy, like objects. And they knew that I was like a 15-year-old kid, and I was fucking shitting myself. I thought I'm going to die here, and and that's going to be the end of that. And there was the next day I didn't expect it, but the next day, just before school, that day I left Nora's house at 6 a.m. to get the first train back to Finchley to get dressed for school, to go to school at 9 o'clock. At about 8 o'clock in the morning, after I just got home, the phone rang, and it was Nora. and she said, Andy, John wants to say something to you, and you could hear him in the background saying, "I don't want to fucking talk to you." And she forced him to apologize, and basically he said, "Andy, I'm really fucking sorry." At least he did that, yeah. And then I didn't see Wobble again for years until just 2 years ago when we played a gig with him, and never got mentioned. I tried to piss on his shoe when we were in the loo once, but that. But yeah. So Jane Suck. How about Jane? What are your recollections of?
Yeah, Jane was really cool. You know, I used to hang out with Jane a bit. Yeah, she was cool. She was quite edgy, wasn't she? You know what I mean? She used to take too many drugs, too much speed and all that. But I thought she was cool. I mean, I reckon she was well ahead of her time, Jane Suck, you know? That sort of hardcore, almost like right girls, like, you know what I mean? Hardcore, you know?
She was very self-contained, wasn't she?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she wouldn't say. But I saw her, funny, last time I saw her, I mean, it was years ago now, because I think she's passed away now. But she was working in a bookshop up Charing Cross Road. Probably about like a while ago now. That's the last time I saw her. Like, I was buying some books, you know, those bookshops used to be at John. And I thought, oh, wow, it's Jane. Hi, you know, sort of thing. Yeah.
Was she still writing and stuff?
I don't think so. Just working in bookshops and all that. No, I don't think so. No.
Because she went on to write for NME, I think, or Sounds, or one of them for a bit.
Yeah, Sounds mostly. But she was quite, I'd say I don't know. It's like, I mean, she was just a really interesting person. You know, there's a couple of, I remember me and Alex. You remember Alex Ferguson? He used to play guitar in ATV.
Yeah.
Alex.
And the
Alex was, that's right. Alex is always trying to get off with Jane, and I said, look, Alex, you don't want to bother. You don't bother. You don't want to go there. You know. But he always seemed to be, you know, up for that. But I said, you don't want to bother, mate. Just forget it, you know.
Maybe he wanted to further his career. And talking about speed, did you? Because I saw a lot of speed. I was always being offered speed by people. Did you any drugs? Did you do speed?
Yeah, a little bit. Although it was a little bit, it was rough, wasn't it? The old amphetamine sulfate. It was a bit rough, but I remember later on, you know, as we started getting a bit more, you know, rock and roll and all that, you know, and hanging out with people, you know, it was the old lot of cocaine knocking around, wasn't there, as well? You know what I mean? We used to hang around with a few. Huh?
I never saw any of that.
Well, you know, I started schmoozing around with the record company people and all that, and you know, the Miles Copeland and all that lot, and Nick and the Office. There was all some of that knocking around, you know, sort of stuff. So, but I've always been lucky. I've always been lucky that I can dip into stuff, you know, whether it's drink, drugs, or whatever. But I never sort of I've never gone down that sort of addiction path or needing to, you know what I mean? I've always been able to have a little dip and then out, sort of thing. You know what I mean? So I've never suffered through it.
That's quite a lucky thing to have. I'm not.
Yeah, I've never been. I mean, I've had a couple of band members. I've had people in the band that have had problems, had their demons and all that. But I've always maybe kept my distance myself, you know.
Did you ever meet Ben Brierley? He was going out with Marianne Faithfull, and he was in one of the label bands called the Bombers. And anyway, he was like he was an old rock and roller who knew lots and loads of rock stars, and he was a dealer as well. And he was always going off to India and various places and coming back with used to bring stuff back in deodorant bottles.
I don't recognize the name.
But he came up with some good drugs. Black Bombers were fucking great. Did you ever do any Black Bombers?
Yeah. The most drug-fueled time I ever had on tour was quite funny looking back. We went on tour. We toured France. We went on a tour of France with John Cale, you know, and his band, and that was eye-opening. It was very, very messy, very messy. You know, it was really rock and roll. There was a guy, the bassist, John Cale's bassist, that Jimmy Bain, who used to be in Rainbow and stuff like that. So it was real like rock and roll. Judy Nylon was singing backing vocals. Judy was there, and that was really messy. There's a few people that didn't survive that tour. It got very sort of, you know.
What was John
edgy,
Cale?
but great tour, great music and all that. Everyone was on fire and all that, but it was really, yeah, it was near the mark, you know.
It must have been amazing. What was John Cale like?
Well, he was, as I say, he was taking loads of drugs and he was up all the time, and his performances at the time, we played 2 nights in Paris, and because you can imagine in Paris, the Velvet, anything to do with the Velvet Underground, they were like gods, you know. And they really turned out for John Cale. It was like packed both nights. It was incredible, you know. I'm really lucky to be supporting him, you know. But very intense, you know, very intense performer.
Nice guy.
Yeah, he was all right. He was all right because he worked on our label. You know, we had him. He put out a single on Illegal Records, and we actually got him. We got him to produce. He produced the first Sham '69 single for us. You know, because it was when I was doing the Step Forward label.
I didn't know that. All right.
Yeah, he produced. We got him. We went in Pathway Studios, and he produced the first Sham '69 record, and then he produced the first Squeeze album, because we were working with Squeeze, all that lot as well. You know, he did their album, but yeah, it was, so we worked with him a bit. Yeah, he was quite a character, you know.
All right, is he still around, or is he?
Yeah, he still makes original music. He must be in his 80s now. I'd heard something he did the other day. You know, he won't stop.
Right.
You know?
He must be well old. That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
In his 80s, isn't he?
Caroline Coon. When did you first meet Caroline? I'll tell you when I first met her through John Ingham, who said that when he found out about us, he said to Caroline, "You've got to meet this band," and so she called me, and then we became quite good friends. Or, you know,
yeah,
I don't know if friends is the right word.
Yeah, she was Caroline. Yeah, no, I met her. They were the first. Her and John Ingham. They were the first like proper journalists I met. You know, in the punk scene thing. I was invited. I mean, it was just back in August 1976, quite early. I was invited. We went down to Hastings with Eddie and the Hot Rods, you know, Barry and the guys, and we went in the van. And Caroline's when I met Caroline, she was there as well. And I don't know if you know this, but I started seeing her a bit. We had a bit of a relationship, you know.
I'm jealous of that.
It didn't last long. It didn't last long. A couple of months or something.
I'll tell you a story about once I was round at her. I was reviewing the singles, helping her review the singles. She invited me to.
Oh yeah, Flat in L's Court. Flat in L's Court.
That's it. And so I was round there, and then as I was going, Paul Simonon arrived at the door.
Oh, excellent.
And I thought I'd heard that, you know, that they had a thing going, and so I said goodbye and everything. So see you later, and door shut. And then I was going to go, and I thought, I'm just going to listen outside for a little bit.
God. No, after, because I saw a little bit. I saw like November, December, and just after me and her stopped seeing each other, because I started going out with Sue Catwoman. I started going out with Sue. But yeah, so just after I stopped seeing Caroline, I think she started going out with Paul then, you know, sort of, yeah, around that time, you know. Because she actually managed the Clash for a while, didn't she? She managed the Clash for a little while.
Yeah. She handled the Clash, definitely.
Yeah. But go on, say what?
She was a real hippie before all that, wasn't she? She was into legalized.
Yeah, she was heavily involved in that sort of alternative, that sort of agitprop type thing. She worked for Release, didn't she? Sort of legal stuff and all that. Yeah, she was an amazing woman, Caroline. So inspirational, amazing woman. I mean, she still does her art now, don't she? She's an art. She got stuck into her art, and she's still an artist now. She still does stuff now, you know.
I'd love to speak to her. It'd be great to get her on. Wonder if she'd.
Yeah, I haven't spoken to her for ages. You know.
I mean, she used to write the reviews of the bands that I liked, you know, before all that started, even as well. So it was, you know, it's always great to meet the people. I'd never met Lisa Robinson. Lisa Robinson worked for Cream magazine, I think it was.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Quite a big figure over there in the States, and
that's
she,
right.
I read a couple of her articles, and I always wondered what Lisa Robinson looked like, and I always imagined her to be this kind of beautiful journalist babe. And then I got to meet her when I met Lou Reed, which is crazy. I'm meeting Lou Reed anyway, but Lisa happened to be there as well. And I didn't even know it was her till afterwards. It was only like literally years afterwards, only like 2 years ago, someone showed a picture of me sitting with Lou and everybody, and Lisa Robinson sitting right there, and I didn't know it was her. So I didn't have time to say I love you.
I think I might have, I think I might have seen that photo of you. But Lou Reed, I got close to meeting Lou Reed, but I ended up not being bothered because he was acting like a real prat. You know, because he could be bloody grumpy, Lou Reed, couldn't he? I mean, I love the guy, you know, his music and that. He'd bloody miserable sub at times, couldn't he be?
Yeah, I mean, everybody has said that about him, but I must admit, he was anything but with us, probably because we were kids, you know, and not
probably
real threats to him.
I was in a queue. We went to see him live at the New Victoria Theatre. And I was in a queue to see him, and it was said, "Oh, Lou's in a bit of, you know, he's tired after the gig, so he'll see people, but you have to go in one at a time." So I was standing there with the guys from Squeeze, actually, Chris Difford and Glenn and Jules and that. And in the end, after a little while, I said, "Oh, fuck it, I'm not doing this. This is bollocks. Who do you think he is?" sort of thing. So I didn't bother in the end. So that
was that at the New Victoria Theatre or somewhere like that?
Yeah, in the Victoria. Yeah, he did. It was the Street Hustle tour.
I was there. I'm probably not on the same night as you, but because I don't remember seeing you. But I was there that night. I remember when I was there, Bob Geldof and his manager was there, and the Boomtown Rats weren't even known then. And his manager was just going up to everybody that looked like they worked for a record company or a paper or a Connectors Lou, saying, "You must see this great band." And everyone was thinking, "Who's that fucking dickhead going around?" And that guy he's with. And so it's a bit kind of sad that he became successful in the end, really. Yeah, I hated the Boomtown Rats. I don't know about you. What did you? And that's after our time, really, isn't it? When they
it's just corny, wasn't it? It was just corny. It was just boring, lads music. I hated all that, you know. Hated all that shit.
And they were just an R&B band, long-haired R&B band. All that. I always hated it when a band that was obviously another band suddenly punk rock.
Well, the thing is, Andy, you know, although I don't personally like the music and all that, I've always got this sort of grudging respect. I mean, let's face it, you know, the reason people get into the music business, the reason they form bands is to be successful. Let's face it, it's better than doing a normal job. So if they happen to have the luck and they come up with some good ideas and they sell records, all sort of good on them in a way, you know what I mean? I'm not going to sort of, you know, I might not like it myself, but I think anyone who can make it in this industry, you know what I mean? Good luck to him, sort of thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but Geldof's kind of, you know, he's done. No one, I would never have expected that guy in Lou Reed's dressing room would end up being super wealthy, fucking travel company.
No, and I couldn't bear all that sort of Live Aid bullshit. I hate all that shit, you know what I mean? That sort of white man's burden thing. I hate all that, you know what I mean? It's sort of like, you know, all that. Yeah, I thought that was shit. Anyway.
Yeah, that was shit, wasn't it? That was just really hot. The 80s was fucking terrible. I fucking hated the 80s. Band Aid.
Yeah, it was a funny. It was a funny time, I think, for a lot of us. I mean, I ended up making music again. I sort of retired. We'd now made an album for IRS Records in 1981 called Strange Kicks, and it sort of bombed a bit. It was going to be our sort of pop album, and it bombed anyway. And I had a few years out of the music industry, but we reformed again. We reformed in about 1985. We started making records again. We made now for Anagram Records, you know.
Yeah.
The Cherry Red people, and that was all right. But I got back into it, but it was very much part of that indie scene, you know. I was working with a lot of the creation bands and like that, you know, people like that, you know. But it was a weird time. It was a strange time. I didn't feel, because, you know, as you know, they were so exciting, the punk years. It was a bit of a come down after that, isn't it? Suddenly, when all that ended, it was a bit like it all went a bit flat. It did for me anyway, you know.
And then the weirdest thing happened with new romantic things suddenly appearing. You know, out of all of that sort of inspirational kind of stuff, right? You got new romantics, and
and I was never into the clothes and all that, so I didn't fit in with that really. I couldn't bear dressing up or anything like that. I don't know about yourself, but I hated all that, you know. So
that would have. I decided the biggest way to rebel after punk rock was to become a hippie. That's how I grew my hair, and
I actually just got a normal job. I got a job with Lewisham Council. I went back to working in an office. That's what I did in the 80s.
I didn't get paid for being a hippie, though. It was just a personal choice.
No, that's what I'm saying. But did you get, don't mind me asking, did you get a normal job after punk? Did you sort of?
I tried. I mean, I always stayed doing music, but I took various jobs here and there, but only lasted like 6 months or so. And then later, like one of them was a porter at a mental hospital, which was
oh yeah, oh,
that was disgusting. My department was the laundry department. We had to like shake the sheets in the morning, get all the fucking shit flying in the air, and urine, piss molecules floating in the air.
And that sounds a bit brutal.
So that didn't last long. But then later on, when I was sort of about 30, I went back to uni, and I went to get a degree in linguistics, but I also took the teaching thing. Like, if you stayed on for another year. And so I thought that, you know, that old standard of teaching is something you can fall back on. I don't think there's any teachers that haven't actually started just because it's a last resort of everything else fucking fails. I'm going to become. That's too much to people telling you what to do. And institutions, I've got a real problem with anything that is an institution, and teaching is very much. And so, not really, no. I've managed to just duck and dive and continue.
No, I worked for Lewisham. I worked for Lewisham Council long enough. I actually get a pension now. I've got a pension from Lewisham, so I did work with them for quite a few years. I actually get a pension, you know, because obviously I've got the state pension, but I get a Lewisham Council pension as well. So
that's all right.
You know, yeah.
I'm a little bit envious of people in that position, because I never planned on getting old, so I never thought about stuff like that. But there's a singer out of Wasted Youth, Ken Scott, mate, and he worked in social work for some council for all his life. And he was like saying, "Oh, it's only a month to go until I can retire." And I was thinking, that's
I don't know Wasted Youth. When did, because they must have come out a bit after I'd sort of split from the scene. Wasted Youth, are they like an East London band or something?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they played at what's that pub in East London that I can't remember the name, but anyway, they were they were sort of Lou Reedy, Velvet Underground. It was in the early 80s, 81, 82, and they had one album and then they disappeared until this whole thing of it's every other band that's ever been together for 1 week, if it was in the 70s and the 80s, can now reform and play headline at this place and that place.
But I've heard good things about them. There's quite a few of my Facebook friends. They seem to be part of the crowd, part of the, you know, Wasted Youth crowd. From what I've seen, I saw some YouTube videos. They seem pretty good, actually. Good band.
It was such a great record that I think that's what helps a lot. And they sound good. I've been to see them a couple of times, and I was, you know, when you go to see a band that you've liked years and years and years later, there's always a part of you that thinks, I'm just going to accept this as okay anyway, even though I know, you know, and you hope that the singer's not going to be squeezed into leather trousers and all that kind of thing. But they totally the reverse of the rock and roll thing. But Ken, the singer, did by he now has a stick. He walks with a stick. And that would have put me off. Someone had told me before that a rock and roll singer has got a stick. But the way he did it is he kind of looks like the Exorcist. You know, he's got this flat sort of hat, priest sort of clothes, and he's got his lyrics on a thing in front of him that looks like a lectern. You know, like a reading from the Bible. And he looks like an Exorcist. And it worked great, and they sounded brilliant. So it can work. plan work. You've got to do it right, though. If you are going to approach something like that, you have to do it right. You can't just get all the boys back together and.
What about yourself? Are you playing? You got any gigs lined up? You playing at all?
Got just one festival with Ia in the summer, and then at the moment nothing. I've got a new album coming out soon, so I'm working on that, and I'm going to be doing some solo gigs later in the year, late in the year. But no, we did a lot of gigs with Ia last year and the year before.
When you say with E2, is Brian back on board or not? You fell out with him, didn't you?
Yeah, well, you could say that. He's now married to my ex-wife, so.
Oh, I know a little bit about that. That's a shame. That's a shame.
Yeah,
well, I've seen it's a shame.
I spoke to him on the podcast quite recently, and this.
Oh, that's good.
It's in the past, but it's one of those things that if you've got a friend that you consider a close friend, there's a red line that once they've crossed it, it makes it very different. That
Oh, that's a shame. Yeah.
But things happen. But no, so it's a young band I'm working with that we're already together, and it's been working out great.
I've seen the photos of your band, and they do look quite young. Some of them.
Yeah, they're sort of 20s and 30s. They're great. I mean, it's just such fun to play with them. That's for me. That's the main reason I want to do it. When we had the first rehearsal, it's always in the back of my mind, if this is stilted and awkward and not sounding right, then there's going to be an embarrassed call the next day and say, well, actually, I've been thinking about this, but it was so fucking great to be in that room playing those. So yeah, but we did been doing quite a lot of gigs. So I'm going to cut down a little bit and just do kind of special ones now because busy on other things. This fucking podcast is taking up a lot of time as well. I didn't realize when I said committed to one a week, my mate Ben said it's best to be consistent, and I didn't think it would be taking up all my time like it does because there's a lot of editing and work that goes into it. And but it's fun to do. It's just wouldn't mind getting paid for it. Really, that would be quite nice.
Is it just like a vanity project in the end or something?
Definitely not. I hate those words, but no, it's. I just thought it'd be a fun thing to do that wouldn't impinge too much on my time, but because I'm quite busy doing stuff. But it's fun. It's fun. I'm not complaining. But
it seems to be getting some good feedback and all that. Some good comments about what you're doing.
Got some great people that have come to me as well, which is.
You spoke to Andy. You spoke to Andy and Sue, didn't you, recently?
Yeah.
Andy.
Yeah. It was. They've all been great chats. Really, there's been maybe one or two that are a little bit. So I mean, it's difficult talking to people. Even if you half know them, you don't necessarily know what you're going to be like in conversation with for an hour. And
no, that's right. But what I've found is, I don't know about you, is that I don't know you very well, do I?
Oh, really?
Right, we've not really, but I find that because of there's this sort of unspoken connection with that sort of early punk scene. Anyone who's around then, there's this sort of instant, I don't know, it's just that connection you sort of know. It's that unspoken thing, or does that sound a bit too hippie-ish? But I definitely think, because I've found that with other people, that I've actually known that well. I probably just moved around or in the same club together, but we somehow hit it off because we were there at the same time. So there's always going to be that connection. Do you find that?
Yeah, definitely. I kind of know what people are going to be like to talk to as well. Sometimes even before you've met someone, you kind of know what they're going to be like to talk to. But yeah, there is that. I think that connection does seem to mean something, doesn't it? Because it's something that we're involved in.
I must admit, the other day it really hit me when Brian died. Brian James died.
Yeah, that was really sad.
And I was thinking, and the way I said then, I felt that it was really great. I think I said in my little thing I wrote, but it was like heroic and legendary times. And I really feel that they were, that heroic times that we all shared. And it when someone like Brian passed, because he was, I said him a bit. Brian was the first person for any band that I spoke to when I was doing the fanzine, and so he's always really meant a lot to me. You know, I was really close to him in those early years, and so when
Yeah,
I heard that he died, it sort of really hit me. But
yeah,
it just reminded me of what incredible time that was to be a part of. You know.
yeah. And he was really helpful to Eater as well. I mean,
Oh
most of our first gigs were through Brian, and
yeah.
then after we both split up from our bands, we started writing together, and he was the only person
Oh,
out of all the
cool.
people that I knew that took an interest in what I was up to and
Yeah.
wanted to do something. And
Oh yeah.
it was just, yeah, it's hard to get your head around people dying. You know,
Yeah.
we've all
Yeah.
I imagine a lot of close people die over the last few years, and
Mm,
you know, it's
mm,
that
mm.
idea that they have just gone and there's no give them a call later anymore or
Yeah.
anything like that. And how do you feel? I've been asking this question because this subject always seems to come up for some reason, people dying. So what do you feel? Do you think you just die and then that's nothing, that's the end of it? I mean, or do you think that
No.
there's something else?
Oh, we've gone into a new, slightly different type of podcast. This is what we're right. So no, I just because I'm not religious in any way. I don't, you know, there's no afterlife, any of that. I just think when you're dead, you're dead. I mean, if you
Right.
do live on, it's in other people's memories and all that. Like we were saying about Brian, you know, if you do live on, it's in your work you've done, your records maybe, and what other people remember you for. But I don't believe in any sort of afterlife or any of that nonsense, you know, fairy tales and all that.
Have you never had any
I'm
weird spooky experiences that have
not
made you think?
really. I'm pretty straightforward. I sort of am the way I sound. Really, I'm really straightforward. Yeah. I think people get too sentimental about it all. I haven't got, you know, that's it. When you're gone, sort of thing. You know, that's the way I am.
Doesn't that bother you? Because that would bother
No,
me. And
no.
I've got an open mind. I don't know obviously what happens,
Hmm.
but from a lot of experiences I've had, you draw conclusions that whether they're hard conclusions or not. And I've got a feeling that maybe you don't just die and there's nothing. But the thought of dying and just being nothing freaks me out a little bit. I'll go
Is
admit.
it?
I've heard Ricky Gervais say before that, you know, you weren't worried about it for the thousands of years before you were born. So why are you going to worry about it when you're dead? But I think that's a disingenuous way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Personally,
No. No.
that's a bit,
I've never really.
that's a bit like saying you're never going to get a heroin habit if you've never done it before.
But yeah, well, as I've said, I don't really worry. You know, yeah. See, I'm starting to think about it now. It's because you asked that question. Fucking nuisance.
Good. I think you should think about it. I've been thinking about it a lot longer. You know, when I was quite
Really?
young, I always wondered about that because I had a really ghostly experience when I was about 18,
Oh,
and
yeah.
so that did affect how I kind of viewed everything. And whenever I pondered
Yeah.
that subject of there just being nothing, that just makes me freak out a bit. I don't want it to just be
No,
nothing.
no, I'm listening to what you're saying, but I honestly think that there is nothing. So, but I'm quite happy with that myself. You know, in a
All this
way, it makes you appreciate life more, doesn't it? You know, to not have this sort of, oh, I wonder what's gonna, you know, just get on with life and do the best you can with the time you've got. You know.
that might be the case if you really loved life. You know, if every aspect of life was great and there weren't any horrible depressing moments with it and tragedy and all the stuff that actually happens in life. So I'm not sure, but there's some great thinkers like say Aldous Huxley being one who he was certain, like when he was interviewed when he was pretty old, just a little while before he died, and his view after considering everything over his life, he was pretty certain that you don't just die. So I'll go with Aldous Huxley, and
Okay.
maybe we'll have a chat about it on the other side, and you can say, yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah, we'll have to see, won't we?
But it's been great talking to you, Mark, and really
Yeah,
nice to
no,
see you.
it's been fun.
It's lovely sunny day as well. What a fucking beautiful day today is. It's really like.
Yeah, it's a beautiful. Well, obviously down here, especially I live in Penzance in Cornwall, and
Oh,
it's gorgeous.
I was imagining you in Deptford just whilst you were talking.
Oh, actually, look, I've got something to show you. Look at this T-shirt I've got. Look, my Deptford T-shirt. See?
Oh, right. So you're keeping your connection going.
No, I'm in Penzance in Cornwall. Can't get further away than Deptford, really, down here, and it's a beautiful day. Where are you living now? Where do you live?
I'm Guildford way, so I'm only about.
Oh, Guildford.
Sorry, Sorry, yeah, it's nice where I'm living. It's kind of not. I don't like going into London too much anymore. How about you? I suppose it's a real.
I haven't been. Yeah, well, last year I did a couple of events. I did a book thing when we had the Sniffing Glue book out. I did the Walthamstow Book Club, you know, like a Q&A. And then I did a gig at the Cafe Otto. Do you know the Cafe Otto? It's in Dalston. We played there last year. So that was, but also this year in October, we got a gig at the Cafe Otto again, actually, in October.
Right.
Alternative TV. So that's the next time I'll be in London, you know, to play that gig.
So you get to visit quite a lot then. But do you obviously you prefer being in Penzance than Deptford now?
Yeah. I mean, London is too many people. The thing with down here is it's apart from when during the holidays, there's hardly anyone about. You know, it's a nice. I know it sounds really corny to say, but it is a quieter way of life. It's a slower pace of life down here, which I've got used to. You know, yeah, it's fine. I wouldn't want to live in London again. I wouldn't want to go back there. You know, no way.
I moved out of London in the mid-90s to Wales. I bought an amazing place, loads of land around it, and it was a really beautiful area. But I don't think I was the right age to appreciate because I just wanted to get out. I felt really claustrophobic there.
Yeah.
But now maybe if I'd have waited, but now I'm not going to be doing that. But yeah, with Deptford, did you know? You knew that's how you knew the people from Squeeze. Is that right?
Squeeze, and yeah.
What about Peter Perrett? Did you know Peter Perrett?
I didn't know. I mean, I knew the only ones a little bit because I knew Harry. Do you know Harry Kakuli? He was the original. He was the original bassist of Squeeze, and his sister used to go out with Peter. So there was that sort of connection there. You know, they were
wife now, isn't it, Zena?
It's probably, but I don't know if I should say this on the podcast, but they were like all the druggies. They were all the druggies.
I think it's pretty.
It was all going on. So
it's pretty common knowledge that Peter Perrett is probably drunk.
It's not a surprise, is it? No. But so I didn't really know. I hardly know the Squeeze people really. Only after we got together on the same record label. You know, Deptford Fun City Records. You know, that's I mean, I sort of knew of them in the area at the time. You know. Because we were like the different part of Deptford. We were like near the Bermondsey end of Deptford. The Squeeze people, they were like the Blackheath side of Deptford, you know, down the sort of posher side. You know, Jules Holland. Oh, Jules Holland still lives down there, Kidbrook and all that. It was that Blackheath crowd, you know, they were slightly posher, a little bit. And we were like more the working class end, like near Bermondsey and that, you know.
They were another band that had been around for quite a bit before the punk thing came along. And
pre-punk, real hippies and all that, But I like the Squeeze guys. I mean, they were a good pop band for a little while. They made some good records, I thought, you know.
They made some great singles, definitely.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll let you get on with your day. It's been really good talking.
It's been enjoyable. Thanks.
Let's stay in touch. And have a think about that. Maybe consider letting Christ into your life.
I knew it. It was one of those podcasts. I knew it.
Shall we pray?
Anyway, I'll say goodbye now then.
We could do a version of the Lord's Prayer, like the Susie and the Banshees version. I've got a guitar over. Anyway, cheers, Mark. Take care of yourself.
Okay, thanks, Andy. It's been enjoyable. Cheers.
Fool's World.